On the 28th of January 1999, I was born in Jordan to an Arab family, and on that very same day, I was handed an identity. Now, I don't know much about that day or why I'm dressed like that, but I know one thing for sure. I did not want to be dressed like that. But the years passed by and my family were still taking pictures of me. And before I knew it, I was 5, and the little rebel in me came out and thought, that's it, I've had enough. I'm fully capable of taking my own pictures. And so, my first act of rebellion came around, and I finally moved on to selfies. Unfortunately, today, rebellion is often frowned upon and thought of as an innately negative concept. But rebellion for me is poetry, it's music, it's mastering the selfie at the age of 5. It's loving what you do and doing what you love, and it's learning how to say no, and there's nothing negative about any of those things. But growing up, I was handed a massive bunch of expectations, which I have accepted at first. I got really good grades, I did things deemed girly, and I was planning to do medicine or law, even though none of them actually ever appealed to me. But I just wanted to do what was expected of me and what everyone else around me seemed to be doing. Because I was scared of rejection and of not fitting in. And this fear turned me into a social construct, and it made my life feel like an everyday performance. But at the same time, it gave me a sense of safety that kept me conforming and performing anyway. So I kept this performance up until my teenage years. Now, my teenage years were the years when everyone dressed the same way, did the same things, gossiped a lot, and spoke about really, really shallow things, like how the weather has totally not changed over the past 10 minutes of this conversation. And I absolutely hated it. But I found myself becoming a part of it because I, like everyone else around me, wanted to belong. And soon enough, I realized that girls were meant to be into makeup and looking good. So I got myself a big makeup bag and I filled it up with random things, but I had no idea how makeup works. And I still don't, by the way. All I wanted to do was play sport all the time. And even though sport leans more towards boyish behaviour, eventually that's what I did. I got into a basketball team and I spent hours each week training until I dislocated my kneecap in 2013. Now, a kneecap dislocation is one of those things that you never actually recover from. If it happens once, it's likely to happen again, and I was well aware of that. And my body was screaming, please do not go back to basketball. But me being me, I thought, well, it must be a great idea to rebel against my own body, and that's exactly what I did. Eventually, I went back to basketball, and here's a picture of me in October getting a much-needed hug after I did it again. So needless to say, it really was not a good idea. Now backtrack a couple of years. I was 16, I was still a social construct, and I was still pretty miserable. Though I didn't understand why at first, because for so long I was the kind of girl with a vibrant smile and a lively soul. I was the kind of girl who for so long thought that the socially acceptable thing to do is also the right thing to do. And just to make it through, I baptized myself in this ocean of expectations, only to find myself drowning, unable to rise back up again. So I looked down and I realized I was also the kind of girl with rocks tied to her ankles, fruitlessly trying not to drown under the crushing weight of society's expectations. And at 16, my walls came crashing down on me. And I realized just how unhappy I was. I also realized that no one wanted to talk about that unhappiness because society stops us from talking about what matters. And that really, really frustrated me. Because I wanted to talk about the unhappiness, I wanted to talk about what matters, and I wanted to make some sort of difference. And I knew logically I cannot change the world and all that's in it. But I knew that I can focus on one thing and possibly make a difference in that. My one thing was mental health. So I started trying. I tried to get my friends and family just comfortable enough to speak about mental health. Because if we don't talk about what's troubling us, we will never get better and the stigma will never alleviate. But it just was not happening for me. And the more I tried, the more I got the oh, no, not again look. And I realised then that not only are we expected to be a certain kind of person, but we're also expected to speak about certain topics. And as I realised that, I felt barricaded inside this cage of expectations and I saw no way out. But everyone around me seemed to be running towards some sort of ideal, so I started running too. I'm barricaded inside this cage. I'm running a race that I'm never going to win because every time I get close to the finish line, society alters the ideal. It changes what's expected of me. Yet I continue running and running and running, and before I know it, I'm no longer running, I'm just running out of breath. I'm barricaded inside this cage of expectations, and I think I saw you there, and you, and you, and you were all there. But I think I'm slowly figuring out a way to dig us out of there. All you have to do is stop acting interested in things that you're not interested in. Stop trying to be someone that you were never born to be. All I have to do is pursue my passion, speak about mental health boldly and loudly, because it's not something to run away from, because it's time someone broke this stagnant stigma. And at 16, the only way I knew how to make my voice heard was through writing. So I started writing poems on mental health, and I published a novel on bullying in high school. I used my writing to tell society that I will talk about what matters. At 18, I decided I wanted a degree in psychology. Now, studying psychology probably doesn't sound like much of a rebellious act at all. But in many parts of the Middle East, a psychology degree is still sometimes frowned upon. And because of that, my decision was a massive act of rebellion, to which my parents were initially very opposed to. They worried I'd struggle to find a job, that I'd be getting a degree in something that for them was deemed trivial. And they did try to change my mind, but it just didn't work. And despite a lot of people trying to change my mind about where I want my life to be, I'm now in my second year of my psychology degree. I'm a mental health advocate, I run for causes I believe in, I'm mentoring children, and I work closely with the UK Eating Disorder charity to raise funds and awareness. But most importantly, I'm happy. And I've always wanted to be happy more than I've ever wanted to be successful, but society seems to only ever focus on the latter, never the former. And as I went further into the field of psychology, I grew more and more interested in this notion of happiness. I wanted to understand what happiness is. Why does everyone seem to want it? Most importantly, why does it seem to be so unattainable? And what I came to realise was quite interesting. So today, we're arguably the wealthiest we've ever been, we're enjoying one of the best healthcare systems that the world has ever seen, and we're witnessing the highest levels of technological advancements. So logically, I expected to see an increase in happiness. I expected to see something that looks a bit like this. However, what we're actually seeing is the entire opposite. We're witnessing the highest levels of mental ill health, and by the looks of it, happiness seems to be running further and further away from us rather than towards us. And what we end up seeing is something that looks more like this. With a simplified reason being an increase in unrealistic expectations. And it became clear to me then that unhappiness seems to be the outcome of unmet expectations. Expectations coming from friends, family, society, culture, teachers, and often even ourselves. And such expectations can never actually be met because they're anything but a representation of reality. And when we fail to meet what's expected of us, we inevitably feel like we failed, like we're not good enough, like we're incompetent. And that then puts us in a vicious cycle of unhappiness, unmet expectations, and feelings of failure. I know because I've been stuck in this cycle many a times. I've been stuck in this cycle when I thought I'll only be beautiful if I was a certain size, and I spent years trying to get to an ideal that didn't even exist. I've been stuck in this cycle when I thought that I'm only worth something if I'm excelling academically. I've been stuck in this cycle when I thought that if I'm not conforming, if I'm not doing what seems to be the norm, then I must be doing something wrong, then I must be wrong. I've been stuck in this cycle for so long as I can remember, and because of it, I spent the first 16 years of my life with a head that felt like a broken record, constantly repeating, accept you're just another person, accept you're here to fit in, accept you can't make a difference, accept rebellion will get you nowhere. And at 16, I stopped and I thought, well, how about no? I rebelled. And for the past 4 years of my life, my head continues being a broken record, but instead is constantly repeating, accept you're not just another person, accept you're here to stand out, accept you can make a difference, accept rebellion can and will get you places in life. And even though rebellion did and continues to take me places in life, like everything else, it has its downsides. And that for me was drifting apart from some of my very, very best friends. And even though some might say absence makes the heart grow fonder, absence will not often make the heart grow fonder. And you will lose friends, quite a lot of them. 1, because it's difficult to maintain a strong friendship online. 2, because it's just the nature of life to drift apart from people every now and then. And 3, because many of the people that I lost were just not right for the person I was then becoming. Another thing that I had to give up when I decided to devote my time to mental health is the comfort and ease of living at home. And because of that, and because of drifting apart from friends, I came to know what loneliness really is. It's getting ill and having to take care of yourself because your mum no longer lives in the same country as you do. It's wanting to share your news with someone but not knowing who because you're not sure where you belong, if you even belong. And it took me around a year to finally find my place again, to finally feel like I belong somewhere again. I was okay in the end. I met new people, people who were right for the person I was becoming at that point in my life. I became independent and increasingly aware that life is much more than my own experiences and beliefs. And even though I still sometimes miss the comfort of conforming, of becoming a hermit in my own comfort zone, I never let it limit or control me, because I know that I am the only one capable of getting me to where I would like to one day be. And anyone here who pushed themselves far outside their comfort zone knows this feeling all too well. The feeling of wanting to go back to doing what you've been used to doing for years and years. Of wanting to give in to the expectations, to conform, because it's easier, and it's just less effort. And when that happens, when life shatters your being and leaves you on the ground looking like nothing but debris, remind yourself that things aren't always what they seem. Remind yourself that you still have a chance to make things happen, that so long as you're alive, you always have a chance to make things happen. Remind yourself again and again and again that things aren't always what they seem, and if you ever forget that, just take a look at celery. It looks beautiful, but it certainly does not taste it. Remind yourself that in a world that exists to make you conform, all you have is yourself. All you can do is let your mere existence be your loudest act of rebellion. And I believe that all of us in here today have a little 5-year-old within us just wanting to take that selfie, just wanting to be unleashed. So today, I am challenging you to let that rebel in you take the lead for the next 10 coming days. Choose to go against something that you're doing just because you think you should be doing. Wear the outfit you thought you'd be judged for. Spend the day in bed, say no to a night out, do what it is you need to do, and witness where seemingly trivial acts of rebellion will get you in just 10 days. And if you enjoy it, turn the 10 days to a month, a year, a lifetime even. I challenge you to nurture the part of you that this world is trying to bury, to rise back up again and shake whatever leftover debris is clinging on to you, because the sun rises back up again even after the darkest of nights, and you and I and him and her and they and we will all rise back up again. Because we were not born to be caged. We were not born to all look the same, do the same things. We were born to be different. And I was only able to know happiness because I acknowledged that I was born to roam this earth, to slowly find out who I am meant to be, to slowly create a life that I would fall in love with. And I knew that a life that I would fall in love with is a life that turns my fears into a mere blur. A life with a vision nowhere near 2020 so that I can't see all that's trying to hold me back. A life that teaches me how to truly be me, a life that makes me celebrate becoming all the things that I've ever wanted to be, instead of mourning all the things that I could have been but never had the courage to actually be. I wanted the success without the struggle, but life has taught me that you can't get one or the other, it's either both or don't even bother. And through it all I came to learn that life is like a mirror, easily broken but will never let you lose sight of who you are. So even if it's broken, you will see your reflection in the broken pieces scattered around you. And what a shame is it to pick up a piece and admire something that didn't exist because fear held it back. And through it all, I came to learn that in a world that conspires to make us unhappy, only anger will get us through. So be angry. Angry at the world, angry at society, angry at all that holds you back incessantly. And this anger might turn us all into kerosene. But that shouldn't worry us, for we would all eventually burn out anyway if you never stop in a world that knows nothing but to keep moving. But how can you ever discern how far you have come if you never stop to take a look back? So go ahead, pack your worries of not being good enough and send them off with a one-way ticket to the unknown. For it's about time you realise you don't need them to survive, to thrive, to be all the things you said you wanted to be when you were a little kid. And at times it will be hard and the loneliness will sting. You will want the success without the struggle, but remember that life has taught us you can't get one or the other, it's either both or don't even bother. And when the going gets tough, just use a crutch, a friend's shoulder to lean on, some chocolate, a cup of tea, or whatever you need to get through. Because when you come out the other side, you will look back and you will see how far you have come. You will look back and you will see that without all that you have been through, you would have never been who you were always meant to be. Instead, you'd have simply been a construction of what society wants you to be. But you were not born to be constructed, you were born to construct. So go out there, destroy what they've constructed, and start your own project. The one you've been avoiding in fear for years, the one you were born to complete. And when you find yourself going the wrong way, just go ahead. For only then did I find my true identity, and only then will you find yours. Thank you.